Hi, my name is Artur and I'm Flutter developer here at Stepwise. I've been coding commercially for 5 years already, and most of the time being a full stack developer and Android developer, but I've always been gravitating towards mobile devices, and since I've got into Flutter, I've never looked back. Today I would like to show you how to implement a custom dropdown in Flutter. Yeah, we could simply use one of the libraries available on the pub.dev, but do we really need to? I find that newer Flutter devs often want to use a library for every problem that they meet, so like building an application from Lego bricks. But that's often not the best approach, and definitely not when building larger scale applications or the ones that will be maintained over longer periods of time or need their own design language. So therefore, I would like to concentrate on a scenario when you need to reflect an established drop-down design, one that you, for example, got from a UI designer or found on Dribble, and you need to be able to pixel perfect the looks and customize every tiny bit of your dropdown, so most likely you want to code it on your own. Anyway, let's go. So first, it's always good to break down the problem you're trying to solve into smaller bits. So in our case, we need to show a model when you press a button, and also we need to make sure that it's shown in the right place, because in some edge cases we might not want to show it just below the button, but more on that in a few minutes. And I wouldn't like that video to take too long, so I decided to split it into two parts. First one will be going through the code that I've already written, some of the user interface that might be boring to code here live on the video, and also about simply showing the dialog, when the second part would be about calculating the right position of the dialog itself. Okay, regarding the first part, to solve our problem we will use a show dialog method, which basically pushes dialog route to our navigator, and we will be pushing a stack with positioned widget. Previously I've used the pop-up route together with single child layout delegate, but that was overkill, it was overcomplicated and didn't actually provide any benefit over the stack solution, into which my colleague refactored the code. Kudos to Carol. So yeah, all planned up, we can get to code. So yeah, as I've mentioned before, I've prepared some code to skip on the basics, which might be boring, so let's quickly go through it. As you can see, the app is already running, and here we've got the main.dart file, basically some scaffold, and here we've got a list of items that we will show in our dropdown. The selected value, callback that gets called once we choose the value. We might add print here, just to be able to easily see that it works properly. And here we've got the build method, so yeah, just a basic scaffold and a few button drop downs that I've placed on the screen. Why not one? Because I would like to be able to quickly present all of the edge cases, and that will matter in the second part of the video. I also wrapped it all in the scrollable, in the scroll view, single child scroll view, so that we can see even more cases. So that's the main.dart file for you. And then we've got a dialog button, which simply builds that little button you can see here on the screen, and also the label above it. We've got some decoration util that simply returns the box decoration, which is that border around the button and drop down itself. I have also got a constants file with some sizes that we'll use across our application or library, whatever. And then we've got the dialog itself. That's the dialog will show, and right now it has a stack. As I mentioned before, we will use stack with align or later on positioned widget to show it in the place we want it to show. For now, we will show it in the center of the screen, and we will take on the center of the screen and we will position it in the part number 2. Here we've got a build content method, which basically will build a header with close button and all of the items that you're allowed to select. We are passing a height here, maximum height. We won't use it right now, but it will be useful later on. So yeah, that's it. And what we need to ensure right now is that the button gets shown when we press, the drop down gets shown when we press the button. So as you can see right now, nothing happens. Or actually, we are only setting state to true, and we use that is open state to change the arrow to the one that's arrow down to arrow up. So yeah, we also need to add logic to show the drop down here. So let's go into our custom dialog or drop down, whatever you want to call it. And what we would like to do is to add a static method that will allow us to show the drop down. It will return a future with passively with value, that's a string. Let's call it show items. And it needs to take obviously the items that we would like to show and also the context. We will need that one to call the show dialog method. Okay, so that's a iterable of strings, that's items. What's happening here? Oh yeah, we ain't returning anything yet. Let's declare a barrier color, that's a background of the screen. When that will get set when we show our drop down. Let's say it will be white color with some opacity 0.8 seems fine. And what we want to do is to return the method show dialog. That's something Flutter material package provides us. It's pretty basic and most likely you've already used it before. Yeah, we are passing our context. Here we've got a builder. So what we want to pass to a builder is a builder that will take our context and return the custom dialog itself. And it needs to get the items, so let's pass those. What else? We could also set use route navigator to false, because I don't see any benefit of leaving it as true in our case. And yeah, we also want to set our barrier color that we've defined previously. And that's it. This is the method that we will use to show our dropdown. But then how are we going to return a value from it? Yeah, I've got it already coded up. So here where we build expanded items, we've got an inkwell, that's a widget that gives us the ripple effect that will make sure that user gets the feedback that he actually pressed the button. So we have an inkwell with onTap method that calls navigator pub with the value of item itself, which is a string, because our dropdown will be simply a list of strings. For now, that's a pretty basic version. And that pop returns that value, so we can use it later on. So all we need to do right now is to call our show items in our dialog button. So here we've got the expand method. Let's call custom dialog show items, context also items, and yeah, that's it. That will show our dropdown. But wait a minute, we most likely want to do something with an item that user has selected. So the show items returns a future containing a string. It will contain a string when user will select the value, but the string will be null when user presses outside of the dropdown, and that's why this string is nullable. Anyway, once the dropdown closes, we want to do something with the value, but also we make sure that our is open state is set to false. So if the value is not null, so that means that user actually selected the value, and widget on change callback is not null. In that case, we want to call widget on change with the selected value. And that's it. Let's check whether it works properly. So I'm pressing the drop down. As you can see, it's shown currently in the center of the screen, but we will handle positioning in the next part. I can press outside, it closes, and nothing gets printed in our debug console because I haven't selected any value. And if we actually select one of the values, it's get printed on the console. So as you can see, everything works as expected. And that's our basic drop-down coded up. We didn't do too much coding in this part, but consider it a warm-up before calculations that are ahead of us. So yeah, here it is, a custom model that uses show dialog and will currently always show up in the center of the screen. We will take care of placement and overflows in the next video. If you have any questions or tips, let me know in the comments. You can see a link to the GitHub repository in the description. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, and see you in part 2.